Hey guys, today we are going to be talking about Starbase. This game was supposed to come out all the way back in early 2020. However, after some delays and some development issues, along with COVID and everything else going on, they decided they wanted to spend some more time polishing the game and adding more mechanics for when they decided to release it in early access. The good news is that they finally have an official release date, which was announced about a week ago to be June 17th of 2021. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of the details in this game and what it is, why I think you guys should play it, or at the very least give it a chance, and see what the reviews look like within a day or two after it coming out. Also, just a quick disclaimer that everything in this video is subject to change. Okay, so first thing is first, what is Starbase? Well, Starbase is essentially a hybrid between Atlas and things like Ark or Rust or any other giant open world survival game, maybe even Last Oasis, but in space. They also take a lot of the intricacies of things like Space Engineers and then apply it to this game to make it so much more in depth. There is so much we have to cover, so we're going to start talking about each different mechanic that is interesting to do with this game, and then just kind of talking about why I have some high hopes for this. Okay, so some of the Starbase mechanics are actually really cool. One of the most interesting ones for a lot of players is that this game has its own in-game coding system. That's right, you can literally code things to do things. So if you want your spaceship to say turn right, or you want a button to turn on a light when you push it, you have to code it to do those things. From what I understand, there's going to be a lot of pre-made, very simplistic codes that you can use, but it can do things all the way up to things like trigonometry or building spacecrafts for you and all sorts of other things. This isn't really something we've seen in any open world survival game, at least as far as I know of, and I feel like I've played the vast majority of the ones that are out there these days. One of the things that excites me the most about this is that coding to me seems extremely complicated, but the way they're describing it seems to imply that it's not going to be that difficult to get a grasp on unless you want to do the extremely complex things. I'm sure if you have any coding background, you're probably going to love this, or you have any desire to code, you're going to love this. But if you don't, like me, I'm sure you guys will still enjoy it, at least at the basic simplistic levels of maybe things like how to turn on lights, setting up wiring, all that different kind of stuff. However, if you are like some people that really want to do all the crazy in-depth stuff, they have given you what seems like every tool you will need to code some of the most complex things you could probably think of. Just to give you some examples here, you can code your turret to have all your other turrets turn in sync with that turret so one person can aim multiple turrets at the same time. You could also turn on things to have door sensors where when you approach a door, it automatically opens for you or automatically closes. I don't really know everything you could possibly do because it's a coding language and I haven't been able to get in the game yet, like some people have gotten in the alpha. But it seems like from everything I've heard, there is pretty much, if you can think of it, you can probably code it. Now, Starbase is also set in a universe that is incredibly large. Now, this isn't something like No Man's Sky where you're going to be jumping from system to system. This is all set in more of an Atlas style of gameplay where everybody is essentially on one giant shard or server or whatever you want to call it. There shouldn't be any phasing from my understanding either, so when you see someone, they're there. Everybody is playing on one big giant server unless they decide to do, you know, some multiple servers, maybe like a US or a EU or Oceanic type server thing. That way people have the same language and other things are able to play together. If you haven't played a game like this, all this really means for you guys is that if you're playing on this server, on the US server, then you're going to see anyone else in that US server, no matter where they're at or what they're doing, you'll be able to eventually go to them and talk to them and hang out with them. Next up, let's talk about what you're going to be doing when you first come into the game. Since Starbase is an MMO and it is a survival game, you should expect this to be extremely grindy. From what we understand so far from the alpha testers, it seems like you're going to be getting into the game, and then you're going to start doing these little mini jobs that kind of function as like a tutorial that will help get you up to speed with the different ways you can make money in the game. The primary one seems to be some kind of mining or tearing down old ship parts so that you can learn how ships are built, how to wire them and all that stuff, or also learning how you can make a consistent source of income. Now, I could be wrong on this number because this is still alpha footage that we have and all this other stuff, but it sounded like currently it's going to take you a few hours to actually get off of the starting platform, get your own small ship, and be able to go out to the asteroid belt where you'll be able to mine full-on asteroids and take out the important materials. There's of course lots more detail to how all this is going to function, like you can wear a backpack that will auto-attract in rare resources, or backpacks that will smelt things for you. Eventually you'll even get to the point where you can use your own ship to grab an entire asteroid, take it back to the station, and sell it for credits. Of course, these are just some of the ways you can make money in this game. I'm sure there's trading you can do. You could try to kill out other players and take their loot. You could go off onto a planet where they've now implemented a system where you can convert gas into actual materials on that planet and then sell them or use them to craft your own ships if that's what you want to do. Another really important aspect of this game is that everything you see is destructible on some level. Of course, there's, I'm sure, going to be a kind of like a hub where there's a safe zone for you, but overall, if you see it, if you want to break it, you can probably do that. There's plenty of footage of people using weapons and using like floor panels they pick up to defend themselves, but everything can be broken, so therefore a lot of materials can be penetrated by the different types of ammunition and weapons within the game. So if, let's say, you decided that you did want to pick up a floor panel and try to use it as a shield while you approach your enemy could then be trying to shoot through that floor panel in order to take you out. The other fun thing about the on-foot combat is that you can fly around with jetpacks, and you also have magnetic boots. That means there is no up and down in space. That's on the space stations too as well. So if you want to flip upside down and then shoot someone when they come in the room, you can do that. If you want to fly all the way to the far side of the space station with your little jetpack, you can do that too. Then, since everything is destructible, if say you get in ship-on-ship combat and you shoot out a wire that happens to just be connected to their control panel, well, they're kind of screwed. They have no more controls. They have to now either find a way to repair it or leave the ship and try to take you out on foot. Of course, going out on foot against a large spaceship probably won't do too well, but it's something to keep in mind that this game is fully destructible. That means the ship you build is fully destructible. If that wire gets cut, if a fin gets taken out, if a jet engine gets taken out, it's going to affect the ship in different ways and change how the ship actually functions. Now, since we're talking about ships, let's talk about the ship building tool. There's actually a way in which you can build and pre-build blueprints for this game, so that way you already have ships that you want designed and ready to go. If you don't want to use it, since it is pretty complicated and a little hard to get used to, they are planning on implementing a in-game system that allows you to build things in a much simpler, easier to build manner with some pre-built parts for you. There's some examples of this, I think, on one of the videos we have. It should help give you an idea as to what to expect. But do understand this game is meant to be a very, very, very customizable game in building your ship in essentially any way you want to. The only rules they have on it is that it essentially needs to be functional and that the frame needs to be able to support everything that you're putting on there. Now, since we're also talking about ships, they've recently said they're planning on implementing something called capital ships. We don't know if this will be in the game for certain when the game does come out on June 17th, but capital ships are essentially these big, ginormous ships ranging anywhere from 100 meters for one that maybe a personal person would use to transport goods or travel long distances or something like that, or a one that could go all the way up to 2 kilometers long that could be a massive battleship to use to take out stations. Now, we do know that stations will have a safe zone around them, and in order to take those down, they currently plan on making you have a capital ship of equal or greater size in order to cancel it out. Now, the capital ships also have their own safe zone, so this does go both ways. So if you do decide that you want to go and attack an enemy team that has their own station and it's absolutely humongous, you will need an equally humongous capital ship in order to take down their safe zone. Keep in mind though that your capital ship will not be safe during that combat, since the two safe zones essentially cancel each other out when that fight is going on. Now, the capital ships are also supposed to be movable, but you can take up to 24 hours or more in some cases to charge up the engines and warp them to a new place. Again, this is a massive universe, so if you want to go somewhere that's incredibly far away, you could fly there by yourself, but I'm assuming once you get the capital ships, it'll be much easier to essentially use it as a fast travel. So the last thing I want to talk about is the factions within the game. So the game will start out with two pre-made factions that are essentially at war with each other, and you can choose to team up with one of these. If you do choose to team up with one of these, your smaller guild, or whatever they call it, your company, your group of say up to maybe 50, 100, 200 players can then help to work with that faction against the enemy faction. You do not have to team up with these factions though, from my understanding. You should be able to go off, and if you have enough players, you can even create your own faction. That's the same level of strength and power that these two starting ones already had. To give you more of an idea here, don't think necessarily Horde versus Alliance in World of Warcraft. I would rather have you guys think of it as you're playing any other survival game and you have that one mega group on the server that just dominates. That's what the factions are. Except in this game, smaller groups can team up and join a faction, so that way they can actually still have the safety of it while also remaining small and independent by themselves. I personally am extremely excited for this, as games like Last Oasis and Atlas had a huge problem, as this created a resulting effect of people having to join massive groups when they did not want to. Just to give you a perspective here, in Atlas, if you were not in a group of at least 100 people when it came out by the first week, you were just going to get wiped off the map and go back to point zero. So I'm so glad they're implementing this. I really hope they do well with this, as I think it could make or break their game. Now, there are many more features in Starbase that they've talked about, and I'm so excited, as these devs seem to be doing a really good job on delivering with what they want, even though they seem to be a smaller non-AAA team. So if you want to find out more information on Starbase aside from this video, then do feel free to do one of two things. You can either join our Discord, which you should see here on screen, and when you do, we will have a channel where you guys can talk about Starbase and maybe even join our group if that's something you're interested in. Otherwise, you guys can go over to the YouTube channel that I will link to you here down at the bottom in the description, where you guys can actually watch every single video the devs have put out. I think there's like 50 or 60 videos. They also have a Discord themselves. It's a pretty amazing amount of content that these devs have been willing to put out and help people to understand exactly what this game is, what their vision is for it, and what they want it to be, so that everybody can have a say on making the game good and enjoyable from multiple perspectives. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you next time.